Hi, everybody. Thanks again for, yes, JB, making a switch for the logistics so I could leave a client call to then come and talk to you guys all. So appreciate it. Yes, we're on day 7. And so day 7 is your Einstein recipes and Einstein decisions conversation. So hopefully you guys get some interesting information out of this, and I'll start diving into it. So who am I? So Jacob Hayes, I've been in the ecosystem almost 10 years now. I've been in a couple of different areas. I worked at a solution as an SI partner, Acumen Solutions, before they were purchased by Salesforce. Worked at Salesforce Professional Services as a practice architect and a solution architect within Marketing Cloud, what was Customer Data Platform at the time and now Data Cloud, as well as working within Marketing Cloud and FSC, Sales and Service. I'm 8X certified. I've worked in a lot of cross-cloud or omni-channel projects for very big enterprises all the way down to small business. And these are some of the contact information for me. So what do we want to do and tackle today? So I want to tackle basically some rough intro or high-level intros into what Einstein recipes and Einstein decisions are, then go through more details of Einstein recipes and the decisioning platform, do a rough demo of what I see or what I have in my partner learning instance that I've created, and then give you guys some additional resources and documentation. I'm going to scratch the surface for recipes and decisions. This could be its own little mini series that JB could do because there's a ton of content in both of these areas. So let's start with the high level overview. All right. So when we're talking about, and I think Chris Long had shown this when he had done his kind of intro, when we look at a pipeline for personalization, where we're looking at for today is the section on the bottom. We're saying we're looking in the machine learning section of the personalization platform, the recommendations engine, the recipes engine, and utilizing the data that we've already captured in the beginning phases of our pipeline. So what does that look like? From a personalization recipes perspective, the actual recipes themselves are advanced machine learning capabilities. So what this gives you guys, or what gives our clients as well as our customers, the ability is to do true one-to-one personalization. And so this first method of the two within the platform for Einstein components is called personalization recipes, which it delivers one-to-one content, and that's products, content, categories, and other pieces. But it also allows us to better understand who the customer is or the consumer is who's dealing with the website or the mobile app that we've orchestrated the SDK on. And it gives us that ability to gather in more in-depth understanding of a customer. And then finally, it allows us to build what I've said here is machine learning algorithms, and we'll go through each piece of with filters, affinity boosters, and variations to kind of fine tune a moment in time to deliver a one-to-one experience. You guys have all seen this out in the industry because this is the Amazon model and the structure that people like to use. Obviously, if you shop on Amazon or any online retailer, you're seeing similar products, related products, trending products as either carousels or other pieces that follows a similar structure and design of what we're doing with recipes. From a decisioning perspective, wow, my image loaded late. From a decisioning perspective, we go a little bit step further. So the one before is we're talking about recipes for our discussion and our catalog design within the platform. Excuse me. What we're talking about with decisioning is actually using the continuous learning algorithm within personalization, which is called Contextual Bandit. And Contextual Bandit provides the ability to deliver an next best action, offer, or experience, which is promotional content that you see in the image on the screen. That allows customers to basically start doing very granular one-to-one communications based off of, you can use weather patterns. So if it's Northern Trail Outfitters, which you guys have seen in past conversations, you want to do a promotional campaign for skiing, we can provide the platform with 2 or 3 potential promotion content pieces and say, deliver that to an individual in a one-to-one manner, depending on how they're viewing the site and what details we provided the platform. Sorry, I've been talking for 2 hours straight already, so it'll be fun. Next, so that's the high level. We'll go into granular details for each one. Here's a slide. Oh, my images didn't load. here's a slide between what's Einstein recipes and decisionings and how we use the two. And then let's start going into a little bit more granular details of what recipes do. So what is an Einstein recipe? It's in a very simplistic terms, it's a combination of understanding the customer or consumer and the content that you have, which means what are you gathering about a customer or consumer on your website or other digital properties? That can be page views, scroll depth, add to carts, reviews, etc., as well as what known preferences do we know about an individual? What online or offline data do we have about an individual? And then we layer in specifically content that we have about an individual. That could be products, articles, blogs, brand, etc. Obviously, I'm using the Northern Trail Outfitters as an example, but the products themselves could be either the boots that you, or the shoes that you see on the screen, or a hoodie, the articles that are related to those products, blog posts that are related either to the product or the article, and specifically what brand, style, and categories. Again, we call these catalog objects within the platform, which I believe you guys have done in a session before this. All right, let's go one step further into kind of the products, the articles, and the blogs themselves. So what elements are unique? And then what are that you have in common across all of the structure within the platform? You can see if we move from, I'll do my little laser pointer. If we move from left to right, from the products perspective, we're going to be gathering unique attributes about a product that you have on your website. That could be either the ID structure, the name, description, the image, URL, etc., as well as what are specific pieces underneath that product? Is it color? Is there specific pieces about gender, brand, or price? We start to then say, all right, what details can we find about articles and blogs as well, based off of details? You can see it's pretty much the same. We're looking for IDs, headlines, descriptions, or an ID, title, description, etc. And then what is common across these classes? Potentially the author who has created the article or the blog, potentially minutes to read or publish date. But then what can be common across the whole structure of products, articles, and blogs? And that's the actual categories or subcategories that you design within the platform. Let's go one step deeper. So if we put that together, we can say that a product for those boots that we talked about before, we have our unique attributes with our common classes or details about those classes. And then we can start to say, based off someone interested in hiking boots, maybe they're interested in the beginner's guide to trail running and the 10 adventures for the entire family, based off all the details we were capturing on the slide before. One final thing before I go even further into the how, because we're still at the 50,000 foot view level, is in order to get recipes and decisionings working, you do need a deep understanding of the individual visitor or the customer within the platform, which means you do need data. AI modeling and AI design within any of the Salesforce platforms, or the buzzwords of the day is generative versus predictive AI, or both. You need data. It's not an easy button. I think the old Staples button that we all can press and say, press it, AI works perfectly. Nope, we need the training. And so you do need to be able to capture details about an individual and about a large swath of individuals. So that's my caveat before we go a little bit deeper. All right, but let's go into the deep things. So assembling a great recipe. I believe, and I can't take credit for the slide. There's some great people in the Salesforce Alliances team who I've worked with before when I was at Salesforce who have put together a couple of these slides. Feel free to reach out to them. Chris is obviously one of them as well. But they had put together some great pieces that I thought I'd reuse for this session. So first is basically we're looking at your strategy along with 4 key components to create a recipe. And those 4 components, as you see on the screen, they're ingredients or algorithms, filters, boosters, and variations. I'm not going to read every item on this screen because we're going to go into in depth for each area. One call out before we go in depth into those 4 pieces is recipes are not simple rule-based personalization. Now, this is a common point of confusion when we're dealing with customers and clients out in the industry. So basically, ideally, what you guys need to apply is understanding how these rules and recipes work together. And as you can see on the screen, you obviously use rules and to target experience as a message to messages to broad or narrow your segments. Examples could be, account-based marketing or geo-targeting. Now we add a recipe on this right-hand side. So applying a recipe is in order to deliver a unique experience for each individual. So that's ideal for product or item recommendations, like we've talked about already, category recommendations, or contents. Again, rules and segments determine who should see the personalization. Einstein machine learning decides what content those users should see. And then campaigns that you design within the platform determine when and where the personalization exists. All right, let's go back and let's start with the 4 pieces. First one is ingredients. So every ingredient in the platform, and I have a slide next that shows all the ingredients available, falls into basically these 3 primary categories. It's either co-occurrence, which requires an anchor item or a product or content piece as the basis for scoring and determining what to recommend. As you can see, that's item in a user's cart, that's the blog they're currently viewing, etc. Catalog base is returning your items and content from your catalog that you've designed within the platform. And then the like behavior here is it new? Is it limited? Is it popular? Do you want to promote that? People like me is the collaborative filtering, which clusters users together. And that looks at similar behavior affinities, contextual information, and surfaces the items they're looking for. So the co-occurrence and catalog-based ingredients fall into these structures. There's co-browse, co-buy, smart bundle, similar items, recently published, soon to expire, trending, and any eligible item. Again, I'm not going to read each little square on the slides, but this gives you your kind of core foundation of what you can build your recipes with. So if we take what we've learned so far about those 4 pieces, we've learned a little bit more about those ingredients, put it together in a little bit high level of understanding before we go a little bit more deep into each of the filters, boosters, and variations. So most of the time when you're assembling and building a recipe, you're looking at visitors, people like me, or any and everybody who's coming to your site with either real-time intent, online, offline purchase history, etc. What we talked about. And you're looking to apply one of those ingredients or algorithms, start to layer in filtering, which you can see some of my examples. That's either inclusion or exclusion rules. Items in cart, content recently recommended, etc. Start to layer in your boosters, which maybe there's a preferred brand they like, there's preferred colors, sizing, etc. Then finally add variations. So let's go in depth into each one. So we'll go filters, boosters, and variations first. Filters. So this is what I like to refer to as your business rules. The idea is filters are the rules that you specifically apply to include or exclude product or content returned by the recipe. Examples on the right-hand side. You can include products in a category being viewed, include similar tagged blogs or articles, and exclusion, I think we've covered, and one that I like to use the most is exclude a product they already have in the cart, or they have in a hold bin, or something along those lines. And you can see an example output, which hopefully it's not too small on everyone's screen. The input itself would be, maybe we use purchase, so exclude products purchased at least one time in the past. For my demo account, it was 365 days. And so you would exclude product. And then the output would be, which I know it's tough to see, these 3 individuals, if you're excluding that set product, they would have different outputs determined to them and provided to them via the platform. So some pro tips and pieces for everyone to be aware of. You can filter on any product dimension or attribute. Use filters when you want to hard code or include or exclude products with certain characteristics. And then recipes pick from that universe of available products and content after all filters have been applied. So then boosters. Talked about filters, let's go into boosters. This is your customer or consumer's affinity. So they're the scores derived from the customer's tracked interactions. And that tracked interactions, if you follow my little asterisk to the bottom, is tracked interactions could include what they have in their cart, what they've purchased, what they've viewed, etc., along with the product and content. So the input here could be, I think we did a simple Einstein recipes example, the booster would be boost on category affinity in the last 60 days. So what did they look at in the last 60 days? What's the weighting and how should that be applied to the machine learning? The output here would be, each individual has a different viewpoint, or based off what they're looking at, they would get a different output of the recipe itself. Okay, so examples here, I won't go so much into the top ones because I think I've belabored that point, but the available options are actually interesting for you guys to keep in mind. So the weighting is what level of priority multiplier do you want to include? Thresholding is how is the affined does the customer need to be a specific dimension in order to have the booster kick in? Look back window itself is what are the number of days the customer's history. We should take into account the customer's history to evaluate. All right, some additional considerations on boosters that I thought would be very helpful for everyone is don't forget that a booster is designed to work in conjunction with and complement your other ingredients. So some pieces to remember is you have to remember that human guided machine learning, that human guided piece. This is where we apply what we already know from our business and our customers' behavior. And that could be the data you already have from your customer or your client, as well as any additional shelf data. And both of those pieces working intertwined become very important. And so from a thresholding perspective, that was what we talked about before, a low threshold setting could cause the booster to trigger potentially what we call noise, which is the boosted attribute or dimension demonstrative of the customer's actual genuine affinity. We don't know. So you have to be careful with that first bullet. An example here could be potentially someone just clickbaiting. So going on a website and clicking and opening up a ton of browsers, that might not actually show genuine affinity. Or if someone's gift shopping for someone, that might not be the specific affinity for that person, but they're purchasing on behalf of someone. So keep that in mind as you're building the boosters. And then another piece here is a very high threshold could create a hurdle for a few customers that they might not ever be able to clear. So again, be careful on the thresholding of how you build your recipe. And on the weighting side, a low weight could neutralize the intended impact of the booster, so be careful. And then finally, a very high weight could overpower other recipe ingredients. I've also included a link on the bottom in the pro tips. So creating a test group and applying that recipe simulator, which I'll show at the end of my slide decks. And when we get into the platform, that'll help validate your approaches. One piece that I didn't write on the slide is recipes within the personalization platform are more of an art than a science. So you will have to tweak and redesign recipes and then see your simulations running to see if it's actually providing the returned output that you would expect. And personalization itself is ABN testing structure, and the platform does that very well. So keep that in the back of the mind as you're building things. So Einstein recipe creations, let's talk about the variations piece. So this is, again, your product or content variety. And again, that allows you to modify the results that are returns that an end user will see a large assortment of items. What does that mean? The input means no more than 2 from the same category, which if you look here, no more than 2 products of the same structure, which you can see helmets is the example for the third one, or hoodies would be example in the second one, et cetera, et cetera. Don't return more than those items within the recipe output itself. And again, that could be class limits, tag limits, that can be randomized. Again, the pro tip for variations is when applying the variation, you're looking for contrast and concentration. Don't want to overload someone. I think the best example I've seen on this when I was working for a couple of clients was that as someone is viewing a specific product, maybe that's leggings or something along those lines on a website, depending on the color or the item SKU or the category, if they already have one in the actual cart, don't show them the same product, and then maybe don't show them leggings at all. And you can start working through like what variation should I show them in the similar products or similar category with a recipe. I'm going to keep belaboring the point. Recipes are an art, not a science. All right, let's go through a couple of example scenarios, and then I'll show you some within the platform as well. Okay, so first one, let's look at a recipe creation that's a product. So applying the ingredients, the exclusion, the boosters, variations, and simulating. And we'll do this for, I think, 3 or 4 examples, if I'm remembering my slide deck well enough. So here's an example, and we've talked about it a little bit before, any eligible item. So very simple recipe and very much in the crawl state. We would say any eligible item, provide that for every visitor. And then you can see every visitor in the simulation actually sees the same exact content. So not really personalized, but it is a way to start utilizing the recipes. Another one is maybe, again, we talked about that exclusion rule in the past. So if the top record would see the same as they have not purchased any of the recommended products in the last year, the other two visitors have. So the output simulation is provided in that method. From here, we could boost on category affinity in the last 60 days, like we talked about before. And what we would be saying in the output simulation is when we boost on a preferred category, based on a time constraint, which is 60 days, we see a distinct contrast between records. So these individuals are seeing t-shirts along with hoodies. This one's more seeing a polo along with hoodies and a jacket. And these people are seeing helmets themselves and a nutrition bar. And then finally, for that variation example, the input is no more than two from the same category. We talked about the simulation, but when you apply that variation, you can provide a wider selection of categories to recommend, all still based on what the customer's affinity is towards. And then lastly, example, because you got to include an article or blog, not just product, is a blog recipe example. So we could exclude for articles and blogs, so you can see the recipe example here, but when it comes to the specific articles and blogs, the one of the key exclusions is the content you have already viewed. So if you've already viewed that content, don't show it again in the output from a simulation. All right, I'm going to pause here. Are there any questions so far in the chat? Let me go look over here.
I don't see any questions, Jacob.
Okay, cool. All right, let's talk and go into the platform then. Hopefully I'm still logged in. It's like I am. So I'm going to show a couple of recipe examples for the team and for everybody here, which looks like I'm good. I am logged in. It's one of the biggest things we always worry about when we're doing a live demo. Okay, so where do you find, and before I go further, can everyone see the screen? Do you want me to zoom in at all? Anybody can answer, or JB, you can answer.
It's visible, Jacob. I'm viewing on a big screen, so not sure how it looks on a small. Yeah, maybe this is better.
I'll go in a little bit further. I got glasses. All right, I got a thumbs up from someone. I barely can see so. And I have giant monitors in my office. So, all right, where do you find recipes? Einstein recipes is under the machine learning section on the left-hand side. So if you click on Einstein recipes, what you will see if you're in a net new, or what we call greenfield instance, is you'd have to create a net new recipe. I have a couple of example ones that I'll show you guys, just to give them a little bit of example. So here's one where we built for personal products on the Cumulus website. Everyone's talked about NTO. I thought I'd bring Cumulus involved in the demo. They don't get enough love. So from an ingredients perspective, we're looking at collaborative filtering and trending. We've done the weight the same for the specific example. That can be changed in any sort of capacity, depending on what you guys are looking for. Oh, before I go there are additional options on the bottom. So you can either add additional ingredients, but because this is published and live, I'm not changing it at the moment. You would be able to add additional ingredients. So you could add, I don't know, co-browse as another one. But you're also able to allow missing anchor items for multiple ingredients or enable trending product fallback. If you enable trending product fallback, sometimes you will see your recipe not working exactly the way that you would expect. So if you ever built one and you're like, everyone's receiving the same thing, but I'm using collaborative filtering and now I'm using trending, why is that happening? First place, go double check you haven't clicked that button. That's personal experience. From an exclusions perspective, we've done actually inclusion of the specific product class from an explicit selection. And for us, it was personal because the Cumulus website looks at corporate versus personal banking. And then we haven't added any boosters or variations. And I'll show you what it looks like when you can actually add those in a separate recipe. And then on this right-hand side, what you will see is you actually create your test groups. And there's detailed information here that you guys can read in when you get into an environment. But test groups are specific individuals or randomized samples of your audience base within the personalization platform. We've created one for a test group here. And let's see if it's running. It is. Great. Okay, so let's talk about the first section up here before we go to the others. When you build a test group, you can add any individual based off their user their identifiers, and again, whatever you've identified so you can search for an individual within the personalization platform. You can also search for anybody by rough audience filtering. So you could say, I want to look at anybody who's new in the land, is not a buyer, etc. I don't have a ton of data in the data set, so you won't see too much information, but you can look for individuals, or you can say add a random individual within the test group to see if our recipe is providing details for them. Last piece is you can look for segments that you've already defined or built within the platform as well, and add a full segment of individuals into the recipe simulator. All right, so let's move that away. You can also remove anyone that you've already added in between or in this specific data set and specific simulation. For this individual one, we're saying any personal products have been shown, so you can see the specific interest area and what they're looking at based off view time. And you can see people are looking at 529 loans, and etc. And what should be the output? The outputs are very similar for these individuals. Again, to the point we talked about earlier in the presentation, which is we don't have a ton of data. And again, you need a lot of data and a lot of information about an individual to do a recipe very well. Not saying you can't do one at the start of an engagement or the start of utilizing the platform, but you got to train the model. My model isn't perfectly trained because I just don't have a ton of data, but you can see the rough sort of design of how this would work. These individuals, based off of what they're viewing, they see information on home insurance, maybe the Cumulus Freedom Guard. This person is more interested in student loans, whereas this one is more interested in auto insurance, et cetera, et cetera. There is another example I wanted to pull up of corporate insurance. So go to that same simulated test group and say, we were looking at personal before, now we're looking at corporate products. And so for the corporate insurance information, we can see that these individuals have been looking at workers' comp, employee benefit insurance, but you can then see how this recipe can be redesigned and reused in the same sort of structure, and then provide additional information. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Is there any questions before I jump back to slide deck? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay. So that's recipes at a high level. Let's then talk about Einstein decisions before we jump back into the platform. So Einstein decisions required, and sorry, I jumped straight into, because we already talked about it at the high level, 50,000 foot view level at the beginning of the conversation, is how do we configure Einstein recipes overall? You're going to start configuring the recipes within the platform using feature engineering. And that is requiring a configuration steps, which you can see on the slide here is specific acquisitions or details about an acquisition, behavior, conversion, or specific details that you actually input into the platform. That's segment membership that you've created, maybe some geography, custom attributes that you're determining with maybe a BI team at a customer, and then you can input those custom attributes. But at the end of the day, we're designing and telling and teaching the machine learning what should it be looking for and how should it be designing the Einstein decisioning algorithm. There are some limits that folks should know about. It's not on the screen, but it's in some of my notes. It's data sets can only have one feature set. So each data set can only have one. A feature set can have up to 200 specific features, which are the options in this right-hand side. And I'll show you when we get into the platform itself. So what is Einstein decisioning or promotions actually use? It's based off everything we know. And I know that's a large statement, but everything we know about an individual that you're capturing within the platform. That can be relevant offers, promotions, assets to show, actions, etc. The model is not limited to known users. That's the pro to this design, is you can also do this day one to anonymous individuals. And that can be, we can use geolocation, device type, browser, referral source, etc. The features that you've probably heard others talk about of what's available out of the box with the platform, you can use. So the feature set for the algorithmic model is using acquisitions, behavior, conversion, affinities, augmented data, etc. And here are some examples. I'm not going to read them all for this presentation, just based off time when I'm looking at it, but there's more details here. The note on the bottom, which I almost missed, is the simplest way to add extra data features to decisioning is to create a customer segment. that way that you believe will be relevant to a given promotion or experience. I utilize that a ton, so you don't have to go through each individual picking of an attribute. Say I have a segment of individuals who completed forms. I want to use that to help the model. You can actually input that segment completely. All right, so how does the promotion or decisioning engine work? Let's work our way from top all the way down to the bottom. So we have active promotions and their associated assets, which the example here for NTO is maybe this join today example. Those are stored in the promotions section of the catalog within the platform. We then, in the second phase or the second step, we define the campaign or template, and that's the content zone selector that we're going to show this decisioning engine. From there, we look, or not we, the platform looks up to 1,000 active promotions within that selected content zone and what is eligible to specifically show for decisioning. Then the promotions eligibility filter, this section here, starts to say what promotional attributes, whether that's an exact match, a user attribute match, the segment inclusion or exclusion, meets the needs to have the individual be eligible. From there, we start to say, or the platform starts to say, a set of up to 50 remaining eligible offers are then leveraged to be used in real time. From that section, underneath it, and follow with me, the Einstein decisioning then evaluates and sorts the remaining promotions within the model. That is then the output of the training against the feature. And then finally, in this last step, the Einstein decisioning template returns the required number of promotions for the given campaign, and that is a maximum of 12 within the platform. Hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, I've been working in this platform for a long time. I even had to learn this about 3 or 4 times because it is complex. So let's go into more details about the promotion and the assets. Let's take an example. So like we've talked about before with the recipes are ideal for product and content recommendations. The decisioning engine itself is specific for offers or promotions. So here's an example challenge that I've seen. We have 2 promotions, but we only can display one. Which one do we show? We need to predict which promotion is more likely to be clicked. How would we do that in a rough, very time-boxed solution here is, how does Einstein decisioning work? Well, we calculate the change to a click, conversion, or global completion. We then pick the promotion with the greatest chance of success. We show it, we record the user's response, and then we update our model. Which how it looks on the right-hand side, if you follow my really rough-looking diagram, is in our first scenario, we're not looking at the value assigned to the specific product. What we're saying, based off of the promotion that we're looking at, the 6% click through like the green bike versus the orange bike. Again, not the perfect example, but it's one that I could show. And then scenario 2 is basically based off value assigned. So if we're looking at percentage offs of a specific product, if 4% times the 900, that's $36 off. Maybe we provide the bundle to the individual versus the specific product to see if we can gain more revenue. Hopefully that made sense. So then we look at, if we understand kind of the high level, let's talk about setup and storage so that everybody understands kind of the best practices. The important things to consider on this left-hand side of the screen is any attribute or related catalog object that you plan to bring in either via the ETL or via the ETL needs to be configured on the promotion before ingesting the data. Don't ingest the data first. You will hate your life. You'll have to redo it again. Before adding promotions to campaigns, consider creating the comprehensive promotion strategy to improve personalization. I can't stress this one enough. Everyone wants to get into a platform and click the buttons because that's the fun part of Salesforce. You do need to take time to actually determine throughout the whole customer journey and the little micro moment of where you're going to be providing a promotion, what makes the most sense. Is that going to make sense with the email campaign that they're doing, maybe with a social campaign that they're doing? It takes time. Its best use of your time is to handle that strategy and advisement ahead of time before designing and trying to redo it. All right, let's talk about the table on the right side. So these are your limits and your storage. So active promotions, you're allowed to have 10,000 active promotions within the platform. And those, yes, sorry, I'm reading a note, and that's exactly what I just said. So the user attribute match criteria, you're allowed to have 5. For segment inclusion and exclusion, you're allowed to have 10 each. For the attributes for promotion, you have actually 10 that are built in. And then you can add up you can add another 25 user created attributes to that design. You're allowed to have 20 related catalog objects, 50 related catalog object values for a single item, 10 assets per promotion or assets on a promotion, and the assets assigned to a single content zone or tag, you can have up to 1,000. And that 1,000 that you have is that random set when we look back at our triangle diagram a few slides ago of where it starts to move down to choose from. Okay, I have some documentation links in here for promotion and asset creation. 2 ways that you can actually do this within the platform is providing a promotion ETL or managing it and building it yourself in the UI. It's the only ways. You cannot capture this via the sitemap. And the promotion campaigns and the eligibility requirements, I have noted on the right-hand side a couple of boxes for things where you guys should be aware of as you move through the platform. So in order for promotion to be eligible to return a campaign, you must follow the following. So the status has to be active. I think that one makes sense. You actually set that promotable active status in the ETL. And that promotion is valid based on the start and end date validity that you configure as well. The promotion has at least one associated asset with the content zone or tag. Obviously, if you don't include one, it's going to be hard to tell the platform to include the promotion. And on the right-hand side, you can see the active. I know it's probably small on some people's screens, so I'm sorry, but the active is in the top right and it expires in 8 months. You can see the assets folder and the start dates, so each area that we're including. And then you can also do non-image based promotions. And so the non-image based promotions that you design are actually built directly within the UI. And so for non-image based promotions, include or consider the following in these bullets. An asset is still required since the content zone or tag is necessary for the bandit decisioning. We have seen, and I've seen people just add a placeholder image or a 1x1 pixel in that moment. A content zone or tag is effectively a filter to tell the bandit which promotion to consider. Again, it's also what we train contextual bandit on. And then the campaign response object is configurable in the template, so a template developer can determine the information. And then finally, the attributes that contain something like a CTA or an asset ID or an action name can be returned to the JSON payload response instead of actually the asset image URL. All right, let's dive back into the platform to show those other pieces. I won't be able to show too much with decisioning. I know that may cause folks to be like, come on, Jake. But the decisioning engine and the feature engineering, like I said, you have to have a lot of data. You have to have a good number of data to start doing this. So what I'll be able to show you is what is available. I won't be able to show you then the promotions and the pieces themselves. But where I went to, so same machine learning section, Einstein decisioning and feature engineering is what I clicked into. This is the feature engineering section itself. It didn't do enough justice in the slides, but the bandit itself is looking at either clicking, conversion, or goal completion, and that's what you're starting to train the target on. And then selecting all of our features, which I've already selected, there's the acquisition. So you can see we're looking at anonymous states, we're looking at device type, etc. Behavioral is day of week, tenure, returning visitor. Conversion is specifically cart related. Augmented is actually the data that we pull in for any sort of weather within the platform. And then adding any specific segment, like we talked about before, adding specific geo-targeting, and that's zip code, city, metro, state, etc., or ISPs. Custom attributes is actually the attributes that you've designed within the platform, and that can be from third-party BI tools, or maybe something that someone is building at the customer level for lifetime value or other items. You can input that into the platform. And then finally, you can add any related catalog object interaction history, which if you read a little bullet here, it basically looks at the interactions or views between these two and starts to help the bandit actually look that much level deeper into the details. So once you save this and you work through the design, you would be able to start looking at, and in the specific gears section, sorry, not gears, feeds. When I was talking about ETLs, So the specific ETLs of what you would start pumping into the platform is your promotion ETL. Again, I don't have any promotion ETLs, so I'm sorry. But what you would do is you would input and provide the specific promotions based off their feed requirements, which I think I have a link at the end of the session today. So you can look at that details on the help documentation, which you would push in the specific CSV file with the actionable promotions that are eligible in the time frames into the platform. What would then show, and in a section here, you would then be able to look at the specific promotions that you want to then tag into a specific content zone. And again, the content zones could be related to the web campaigns that you're looking to build, or it could be related to open time emails. So you could have the promotion piece built into open time email. And I think JB, keep me honest, open time emails come in a little bit later, so I won't steal the show there. But you can use the decisioning engine and promotion engine to provide a specific zone in an email for open time email within Marketing Cloud or an outside ESP vendor. Okay, and then finally for reporting, and I don't have any reporting, but so follow conceptually along with Jacob, is within the reporting section, you'd be able to report on recipes and decisioning within the platform so that you could see how they are doing, what is running well, what is not, what do you need to tweak, etc., etc. Okay, and I'm sorry the demo isn't great on decisioning. It's a tough thing when you don't have an actual client instance. So additional resources and documentation, and we'll have hopefully around 10 minutes for Q&A. I've put together, and you guys should have access to this. JB will give it to you. The learning and resources that I view as most helpful. So in the knowledge base itself, everything from creating a recipe all the way to testing a recipe. On the Personalization YouTube channel, which I think they do a good job, support channel, of showing the high level details of the recipes in videos. And then I've added the Einstein capabilities section or a link to in eCampus. Again, if you have access to eCampus, and you can request it. And if you're a partner, if you're a client, you have access to this. You can also request this from your Marketing Cloud account executive. But they do a good job of running through the Einstein capabilities within the eCampus course. All right, so I'm a little ahead of schedule with 12 minutes, but I'll stop here for Q&A. JB,
Thank you very
help
much,
me.
Jacob.
Yeah, thanks.
And a special shout out to all the resources that you have shared at the end. So those are all helpful links. Thank you very much for sharing those as well. And for everyone, we will be sharing the slide deck soon, so you can access those links. And we believe you are following all the sessions, and after the session as well, you're able to get the slide deck and check the links and follow up on the additional resources as well. So only after you do your homework, like you go and do the extra research and try to learn or try to revise on the topics that we discuss in each session, you will be able to remember them, or you will be able to register, or any questions you can follow up on that. Thank you very much, Jacob, for a wonderful session. I have a few questions here. For the recipes, do they include the ETL imported transactions as well?
Yes, you can. So recipes themselves, and maybe I can show this and jump back into the platform, it's utilizing the full end-to-end data model that you're designing. It's not utilizing user profile objects, but it is using the catalog objects and the model that you design. And so actually, let me build off of that and actually show you guys. So because I forgot to show you, I'm building that new recipe. Sorry about that. So when we're choosing ingredients, an example with a co-buy or exclusions, I can exclude or include anything designed within the platform. So any products that we've determined outside of the cart or from an explicit selection, or I can add inclusions and other pieces based off purchases, favorited items, inventory count, etc. There's a lot of items here, which is why I said there could be like 4 or 5 sessions on recipes themselves. And the ingredients, you could actually add a specific, let me look at, not the eligible items, let's do similar items. Instead of on page, I could look at the explicit selection themselves and actually anchor to an item. And so for Cumulus example, that could be home mortgages. So you can anchor to that home mortgages and then show any similar insurance or mortgages selections. So hopefully that helps too.
Sure, Jacob. Thank you.
Yep.
And the next question is on the trending. So can we choose how many items are displayed or needed to be returned before going to trending?
Yeah. So it's along the variations realm is what we were talking about before. So dimensional, you can choose the variations in the item limit that you show. That is along the lines, and let me know if I'm answering the question correctly, is you can show based off the category or the content class or keywords, depending on which structure you're building your recipe off of, you can show the specific item limit that's relating to those pieces. So if I only wanted to show a 3-item limit relating to a specific content class, I can add that in there. If the question is also relating to, I don't know, we can go to Northern Trail Outfitters as an example. I'm on the cart page in Northern Trail Outfitters and I want to show my product trending recommendation recipe. I only want to show 2 instead of 3. That's also what we're discussing and designing here.
Okay.
Does that answer the question? Whoever
Yes,
asked it?
Jacob. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool.
And
Yeah,
the
no problem.
next one, is it possible to set certain specific products as a fallback for the product recommendations?
It's a good question. So yes, there is. I think it's my fun little, we can enable trending product fallback. Be careful with it. It does depend on the specific use case. I feel like I'm being a very good consultant at the moment by saying it depends. It depends on the specific use case. But if I'm understanding the question correctly, if we're looking at bought by users who currently purchase a specific product, let's look at explicit selection. I don't know if I even have mortgages designed in this. Yeah. We can do a trending fallback so that if there's absolutely no details that we have on this individual on commercial mortgages based off our recipe, we can say enable the trending fallback and look at products in the last 14 days and provide those in a recipe algorithm. My caveats to the answer that I'm providing you is test your recipe and simulate it to make sure that it's providing what you expect. Again, based off the use case that you're looking to do.
Thanks, Jacob. That's a great call out. And the last question for the day, how can we recommend the products under a certain price range?
Good question. I believe Mateus, I always say his name wrong. I'm sorry, Matthew. He's done a good article post in his own blog about the specific question. And you can look at how you utilize the catalog objects and the relationships between catalog objects to make a recommendation based off of a price, based off of promotional state and those sorts of pieces. I'll add that to the Slack group for you guys to read it because there's no way I'm going to do it as great a justice as he does and what he's written out. But there is ways to do that. And you can, as you design your catalog and your design and your structure of your data model, you can get as granular as you need to based off of the design of the catalog objects and the custom created catalog objects.
Awesome.
So sorry not to be super specific, but I got halfway there.
Look forward to that link. I will also add that link to the description of this video. And I think those are all the questions. I don't see any of the questions in the chat. Any other questions, please share, everyone, any questions that you have. We have time to address.
All right, well, if
I think that's
anyone want to type real quickly, if not, yeah, JP, we're at the end.
So I didn't see anything else, Jacob. Thank you very much for finding some time to share this presentation. This is very valuable and really appreciate you for being so flexible and willing to share. Thank you very much.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or anything, since I know we have a little bit of time. Happy to connect and discuss any items with personalization. I find this a fun topic, as JB already knows. I like to share the knowledge that's in a small niche environment in the industry. So thanks again, everybody, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you very much, Jacob.
All right, thanks again.